So how you doing?
Oh, I'm pretty tired. I'm pretty tired. And you?
Yeah, about it's been a rough week. Let's just say it's been a rough week. Yeah, I've been really exhausted, but I slept for like 14 hours. So here we are, Sunday morning, January 26th. But you're looking really tired. You're looking really trashed.
I, yeah, maybe I am a bit trashed. I find all this kind of draining because it's emotionally draining. Chucking all this stuff at Exxon and it's basically Reddit that I'm doing all this back and forth. And what I find really draining is basically I kind of feel like I'm absorbing people's karmic idiocy or just sucking demons out of them or something. But I feel like, okay, if we're going to do the same thing as we did last time and do clip references, I just mistakenly did one in my head, and that was Harry Potter. It's like the kind of Death Eaters kind of thing, and
Dinner.
Yeah,
guys, all these trolls are like Death Eaters on Reddit. They kind of
yeah,
suck the life out of you. It's like, guys, it's common sense. For Christ's sake, do we have to make this so bloody difficult? But we do, because people have all their, background and their belief system, and you're really just doing an exorcism of, basically say, get the shit out of you, man. And I kind of overdo it sometimes. It's just wrestling these people to the floor. I kind of feel like I have to wrestle them to the floor because it's visible. So you can't let it stand. You can't
hmm
feel that way. Maybe I'm wrong on that score, but I feel like I have to wrestle the demon to the ground. I can't let it go. And then at the end of it, I'm shattered. So I've done
yeah.
that, time after time, and it's kind of like you just, you know, it's like
It wears you down.
it's like fighting Agent Smiths. They just come at you and multiply and stuff like that.
They
But
swarm.
You. Yes, me. Me, me, me.
we're making headway, because it just seems like it takes a ton of my soul to get people to go, huh, and I'm like that's one huh, and that's all I'm trying to get. But it takes like a pound of flesh from me to get a huh from some other idiot troll
Yeah,
kind of guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I don't
Uh-huh.
know. Maybe this is all a fool's errand, but once you get into it, like, you can't back off. You're kind of riding a tiger. So
Yeah, well, your head is in the tiger's mouth right now, right? Once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can't unknow it. And you're trying to get people to do that, huh, when you really want that aha moment where it's like, holy shit.
The size of that thing.
The door, come on!
yeah,
It's
exactly.
that it's that
It
it's
takes a
that
lot of
visceral
those
reaction.
like little, it's like drops in the teapot, and it takes a lot of those little drops before they go, oh, you mean this? And this, like, yeah, it's obvious. Hello. So to tell people
Yeah.
the obvious, you need a lot of little drip. But I never really believed this Ron White thing that, you can't fix stupid.
You can't fix stupid. There's not a pill you can take. There's not a class you can go to. Stupid is forever.
Maybe I'm stupid for that, but I really thought you can fix stupid. Stupid is really, I've always thought, is kind of an active thing. It's an activity. It takes
Right.
work to be stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
these people are masters at it. So occasionally you get stupid, but that's rare. And it's normally divisive. Hey, let me tell you a little thing that I've used for years, but I never really tell anybody, is this kind of test for stupid and stupidity.
Test for
So
stupid. I got to hear this.
yeah, I've always had this little test for stupid. I figured it out years ago, and I try to apply it, and I'll put it out there in case it's useful to people. But basically, it's a little stepwise test. And the very first thing about stupidity is the very first, if you encounter stupidity, you say, is this stupidity or not? Is go through this checklist. Very first checklist is it me? Now, mileage may vary, but for me, it's embarrassingly often when I, come across stupidity, it's actually me. So I'm talking like 75%. I hate to tell you how many times it's basically, just kind of a flat out, me getting the wrong end of the stick, me being stupid or something. So basically second guessing yourself, that catches about 75%. If it doesn't fail that test, if you really analyze and think about it and say, no, the communication is correct, there are no wires crossed here, I'm not being a dick, then you go on to step 2. And the step 2 is basically, are they being paid to be stupid? So is it basically,
is there an incentive?
A lot of the stupidity, climate denial and stuff like that there's so many people, we wear this mask that society requires of us. I think the Japanese call it, I must look that up actually, tatame. Basically, actually we maybe have a little time out to get to the internet and just look it up, because I think that's probably important at this point.
One eternity later.
Okay, yeah, I was right. It's hone and tatame. I think that's how you say it. Yeah. So hone is a person's true feelings and desires. So Japanese,
what's really
very
going on?
Socialized, very, it's. I think hone means true sound. So it's basically what you really feel like on the inside. And then tatame is the behavior and opinions one displays in public. That's basically what the public demands of you, mainly to keep the system intact. Man, I could do a whole video on these two, but I've got something else in mind for this one. So anyway, going through, so then behind that tatame mask is basically often people are paid to be stupid. The job depends on it.
Even in the cubicles of the hierarchy, where fear was generated, seldom suffered, he was called the TikTok man. But no one called him that to his mask.
And that's number 2, is a significant category of people. The third one, if it passes that test, the third one is that it's really just, it's a trick. So basically, it's a ruse. It's a setup.
It's intentional.
What's that?
It's intentional. There's an intention behind it. Intention to deceive.
Yeah, it's an intention to deceive it. So they're trying to dummy you. So they cooked up a plot to basically think up something that, it appears dumb. It's an old military tactic. So one of them is the false retreat, is a famous one that gets everybody. This gets rebels every single time, the false retreat. It gets anarchists, everybody it gets. The Romans were very good at it. You have to be a very disciplined army to do a false retreat. But the Romans came up against the barbarian shield wall, particularly of the Germans, right? And they couldn't actually break it with their superior phalanx tactics and things like that. So what they did was they'd just do a false retreat. And what it meant was they'd come up against the shield wall, feign a strong attack, and then feign a defeat and then rout and run back.
Oh, and then they would charge.
Yeah, then all the guys would go, yay, we won, and they'd all break the shield wall and start running down the hill after the Romans, in which case they would form up rapidly, turn around and rout them. That old tactic is never worn. That old tactic is never worn thin. It's basically, you can still do it all. So anyway, if the guys look really stupid, hey, look at them, they're all running away, stupid idiots, let's get them, is like, bam, that's right. And then, so that's the third one. And then the fourth one, if you pass those 3 tests, the fourth test is genuine stupidity. Right. But it has a strange quality to it because it'll divide a room. Genuine stupidity is divisive. It'll divide a room 50-50. So it's kind of like an election.
Uncertainty,
in
almost
the
an
US.
uncertainty, right? It almost flips it into an uncertainty where it could be A or B.
Yeah.
It turns the room into an A/B test.
Yeah.
Right? Kind of.
It's basically every election in the US is kind of an A/B test. You get two choices, blue or red,
Right.
and everybody, you think like, Donald Trump, okay, let's just establish that as a fucking stupid choice. But it divides a nation. 50% of people will go for the stupid choice. And generally that's my final test is it divisive in that kind of way? So anyway, that's my little stupidity test, 4-step stupidity test.
Okay, I've got some, can I ask some questions about your tests?
Yeah.
So if you get this is basically a litmus test. So if you go into a room and it's divided, isn't that just an automatic sign of stupidity?
Yeah, I mean,
divisiveness is a manifestation of stupidity, right?
Yeah, it's that old demotivational poster that's like, none of us is as dumb as all of us, and it's basically the headline on the demotivate. You remember the demotivational posters from the 80s?
Yeah.
I'll try and find that one, but it says meetings. And they have everybody, gender balanced, hands in the middle, all clasping, all this, la, 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 la. And then the demotivational subtitle is like, meetings. None of us is dumb as all of us. And that's stupidity. Yeah.
Okay, a couple other questions. Stupid. I have a couple other questions about your list. So you're talking about that to pull off that to dumb other people, to make other people stupid and tell them a lie, you have to know it's a lie. In other words, ignorance. How does ignorance spread in that paradigm? How does stupidity spread if the people at the top know it's a lie, but they're telling a lie to confuse the masses?
Okay,
right?
so
they know it's a lie, but what if the leaders are also living a lie themselves? You see what I'm saying?
Well,
it's like a sub-lie.
Let's discuss that, because that's how psychopaths work. So, again, people think I'm being a bit melodramatic and stuff, saying that the people at the top of our hierarchy, they're not really psychopaths. They're more sociopaths, and they're psychopaths. Trust me on this one. You're being duped. The guys at the top, they are psychopaths.
Don't they have to be? Don't they have to be?
They do.
By definition.
Demands, you cannot get to the top of a big corporation in America or a government. It is a test of psychopathy. You look at somebody like Obama, and then people say, but he's a nice guy. Psychopath. You see, psychopaths, it's kind of like in the movies when Hollywood, they always paint the bad guy as a cape, and you can see it's pastiche. It's just basically pantomime. You can see he's the bad guy from A Million Years. Well, if you are the bad guy, you don't go and wear a thing where you don't put vampire fangs on. If you want to do real harm and basically get control of a lot of people, you present a wonderful aspect. So you
put a business suit on.
Perfect person, First flag that should go up is, this is too nice. So Obama's too nice. And then you look a little deeper, he's got this little chameleon aspect, psychopath. There's no way you can get... He came from Tammany Hall in Chicago, and through that election process all the way up. I've known guys that have contributed to his election. I don't want to dox anybody here. But
I wouldn't dox anybody right now.
But I said to them, like, how can you support this guy? He's got to be rotten. He came from Tammany Hall and stuff like that. They just said, no, he rose through all that very quickly. And I was like, guys, think it through, man. You're talking basically the mob. This is a mob-run city. It's like, and you rose through that very quickly? And that means you're a nice guy. You've got to be the worst of the worst to rise through the ranks in the mafia and say, oh, no,
right.
He's
out of Chicago.
He's the cream of the crop, rises to the surface. How can it be the cream of the crop that you can get to the top of a mafia, gangster paradise very quickly? And they don't believe me, right? They actually gave me, but just if we're on this thing, the actual guy I was thinking of, we actually went to a fundraiser for in 2008 for Obama, and it was for a guy who was okay. He looked like Mr. Clean. You know, I don't think people in the UK know who Mr. Clean is. You have to explain.
Bald guy with an earring, big Mr. Clean guy. He's like this, right?
Yeah, but a complete gangster, right? But he was Mr. Clean.
Oh, that kind of Mr. Clean, not the wash clean, like.
No, he was. He visually, he was straight off the Mr. Clean bottle.
Okay.
And he was presenting a Mr. Clean image, but it was so funny because he was so gangster. It was unbelievable.
Oh, he's pure mafia, huh?
Yeah, but anyway, the end result of that was, at some way through that fundraiser, the guy I'm talking about, he went like, psst, psst, let's get out. Really, he didn't give him any money because he realized, oh, this guy's gangster. And I was like,
right.
What do you think? Obama is gangster, man. And then he comes, into the, he makes the devil's bargain,
Right.
And it's kind of psychopathic to say that, to do some good and to placate your Messiah complex. Blair does this too. Messiah complex, narcissist. And then, they tell themselves they've got to do some good. And to do some good, you've got to make the devil's bargain and, get to the power seat. And they lose their soul getting to the power seat. But, that's, in the end, everything Obama did that was even halfway good has been erased by Trump now. Obamacare doesn't exist. Anyway, I didn't really want to go into politics, but...
Neither did I. But keep going. Do whatever, say whatever you want.
He's killed... I don't know how many, but tens of thousands of people with drones. They're all fucking psychopaths. Anyway, let's get back on track. Is the guys that look really nice are psychopaths, and how they work is they will divide a room. They will divide any place.
Divide and conquer. Always divide and conquer.
Divide a country. They'll always divide. And the reason is 50% of people can see through what they're doing. You have to have a little trauma in your background to actually see these guys. Most people that let them pass in the 50% are people that have not suffered enough trauma under psychopaths. And then those guys give them a free pass and the benefit of the doubt. Very often because they look good. So like you get Jeffrey Dahmer, he divided the courtroom. Because a lot of the time the women, they'll say, but he looks so nice, he can't have heads in the fridge. And he said like, no, that's how he learned to get heads in the fridge, because he was pushing. What the psychopaths do is they push the boundaries all the time. And people give you tremendous leeway if you look good, particularly the woman. So they can do tremendous evil because they're exploring. Like Donald Trump, if you go through his background, he's always exploring, always pushing, testing the limits. And if they find any resistance, they'll back off. But then if they don't find any resistance, they don't know where to stop. So they will go, or if they encounter somebody without an ego, they'll put their head in a fridge because the person never tells them, hey, no, actually, I'd prefer it if you didn't cut my head off. And they'd go like, you never said I couldn't cut your head off. Now it's in my fridge. And then those guys, they get a free pass from about 50% of the people. And that's the thing you're talking about. That's why they're so damn dangerous. People can't see them. 50% of people can't see them coming. But this key signature is the guys that can see them coming, the needle will be off the charts in the red saying, guys, this is terribly, terribly evil person. And everybody said, looks okay to me. Then you've probably got a psychopath. Anyway.
Okay, so in that moment where that person says they look okay to me, what kind of stupid is that? You had your test. When they go, it looks good to me.
Okay,
where's the stupidity?
There are a number of things. So one of them is that they're on a payroll. So then a lot of them, you see, psychopaths often have an entourage. So if you look at a psychopath like Jack Welch, he has a little army of people. Entrepreneurs will do this and stuff. They have a little army of people that will ride their coattails knowing that they're evil. But they will do it because they want to get scraps off the table. They're thinking, I'm going to try and hold on to my soul. But, all these guys that are, around Trump that are now in prison, that's what those guys are doing. They shouldn't be let off because they come around later and say, this guy is so evil, you wouldn't believe it. He's, you know, the Antichrist in person and stuff like that. And say, like, yeah, but you kind of knew that underneath when you signed up on his train.
Right.
And so those guys shouldn't be forgiven for that. They found out later that basically he's Kronos and he's going to eat them. But when they see, you know, that you know, they think they're in with him, and they often think they'll control him and they'll manage the situation, and then they'll collect goose eggs, you know, golden eggs on the way, and that's what those guys are doing. So that you have the second tier guys that are trying to collect basically a payout from the psychopathy.
But I don't have any friends, and I'm not going out there by myself. Hey, wait a minute, I got a great idea. I'll stick with you. You a mean green fighting machine. Together we'll scare to spit out anybody that crosses us. Ah! Oh, wow. That was really scary.
And then, so then the third one, that it's just a trick. I don't know if that one really applies in this case.
Well, the trick is the narcissist at the center, because the narcissist at the center, the dirty little secret that narcissist knows at any level is that they're a fraud. They know that they're a fraud, right?
Yeah.
Narcissists deep inside, they look in the mirror and they know they're a fraud. Mirror, mirror on the wall, they know they're a fraud. And if they can fool that small group around them so that they worship that person anyway, even though they're a fraud, right?
No, so
isn't that a trick on the inside? Isn't that a trick? In other words, the narcissist is fooling that circle around him, right?
Yeah. So
what's that dynamic there? What's the dynamic there between those?
It's narcissism. So the narcissist is the psychopath. So they need narcissistic supply. You see, what is the psychopaths are somebody who's been traumatized, and they and anybody like me, I've been traumatized, right? So I'm kind of like a controlled psychopath. So what basically somebody that's been traumatized and sees the world as hostile and they're fighting for their life every single second, then what they're actually hypervigilant. So they can keep control of a room. They're more highly keyed in terms of their awareness. And they use that. They kind of, if they're in a room with people, they assume that everybody's hostile and out to get them. And very often in their life, it's some formative experience that confirmed that. It's not really, they're not entirely wrong in that respect.
Especially with childhood trauma, right? You're talking specifically about childhood trauma, where it's the little child realizes, holy, I'm not safe. It's me against the world. Everybody's out to get me as a child.
It normally happens from abuse of authority. So that basically some adult in authority has abused their authority to do something like, you know, sexually molest them or do some abuse of power thing or something that's traumatic for a kid that's an authority figure. So priests, and what's dangerous about the priests in the Catholic Church and the child molestation and things that those are doing is they are authority figures. And if they abuse authority in that way, well, we just collect them as anarchists later on, right? You basically, they're minting anarchists for the anarchist movement. Because basically, we're all victims of our childhood psychology and our philosophy of life that we form normally before about 4 years old. So if you run into an experience like that, you assume that the world is hostile, and you have to watch out, especially for authority figures. You never trust anybody in authority again.
Well, you can't trust anybody, right? To start with. You
can't trust anybody because everybody's kind of authority in a way. And then, what you find then is that people are not hypervigilant because they're kind of secure in their own skin. And imposters, they have, the psychopaths have imposter syndrome. So that they're always bluffing. They're always, basically, Trump is bluffing he's a president. It's always bluffing every minute. But he can control a room and maintain a kind of equilibrium just by doing kind of conjuring tricks where it's kind of like a magician's like, hey, look at that over there, look at that. And Trump's doing that all the time. All his tweets and stuff like that are diversions from, basically, if you can keep everybody spun up so much about some kind of side issue, then they don't focus on you. So basically, nobody's focusing on Trump. They're focusing on what he did, what he's done.
His tweet, he said.
Thing around. Yeah, it's basically, it's the story around you. So because I know all this, I've frequently been in very hot water, being close to a psychopath, and especially things like CEOs and stuff like that, because I'm hypervigilant too. And so in a room, I can see what they're doing, and I can play the game usually better than them. I'm not boasting here, but I've never really come across one that I couldn't play the game better than. So they can see me across the room because I'm playing them, and I've made some vicious enemies by toying with the psychopathy. So what their game is to basically troll everybody else and keep them spun up. They call it, what do they call it in the UK? It's kind of a game in the UK that you in social circles where you try and spin somebody up without them realizing it.
That's not gaslighting, is it?
No,
gaslighting.
It's kind of like you can all play it in teams sometimes. They'll do this to you in the UK if you're not used to the culture in the UK and you come from overseas. It's like a colonial, like I did when I first came to London. You're not used to this game. So if you're very passionate about anything, they'll milk it. They'll try to see how much they can spin you up, right? They'll try and rile you up, right? And it's they all say shit that controversial shit. It's just designed to see how far they can make you redline it.
Just basically fire you up and work you up about things.
Yeah,
because they know you care. Because they know you care.
Yeah, exactly. So then it's basically a way of like cutting the daisies, So basically, so you soon learn the game, and then you get good at it. But that's pretty much what psychopaths are doing too. Is as long as they're spinning plates all the time, and each person in the room is a kind of plate, and if they can keep it spun up, then they can keep people doing what they feel in their heart of hearts going to happen. Is if they stop spinning the plates, all the plates will turn on them. So it's kind of like lion taming. They're lion tamers all the time.
Lion tamers. Yeah. Okay. So you've talked about psychopaths, and you've done your stupidity test. Can we apply that to XR? What's going on? Let's look at XR through those lenses, those two lenses. Let's look at XR. Can we go down your idiot list, an XR strategy?
Shit. That's it. So I don't see any psychopathy in.
No, probably not. But stupidity? A lot of stupidity in XR right now.
So here's the one corner where there could be psychopathy, and that's that if it's a controlled opposition op, it has the smell and feel of a controlled opposition op. So then you would get a psychopath like, say, Hillary Clinton. She's a bad psychopath. And what the State Department is, it's just full of psychopaths. And what the State Department and Hillary did was, there's this great little clip where she exposes herself. It's very unusual for a psychopath to do this. They normally have more control.
Libya?
But the one where she says about Gaddafi,
Yeah, Libya.
I actually spliced it into the opening of my very first episode in this video series. And basically she says, we came, we saw, he died. And it's like that.
Wow. Huh. Unconfirmed. Yes, we came, we saw, he died.
Did it have anything to do with your visit?
No, I'm sure it did.
That there is the diagnosis psychopathy. At the end of that last laugh, there isn't a psychiatrist in the country that wouldn't diagnose psychopathy after that. I mean, if you are a psychiatrist and you don't agree with me, then I think I'm better at your job than you are. Yeah. But she clearly really, basically some guy has died and died horribly. Doesn't matter who he is and what he is. If you can laugh like that, basically it was she organized Gaddafi's downfall in, kind of this, basically in a plot, right? Mm-hmm. And so the techniques that the state uses, the U.S. State Department, which she was head of, those are the common techniques. Now the reason, I'll give you a little side thing here. God, it looks like this one's all about politics. The reason why
Can we not talk about Hillary? I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
Let me just fill this in because it's Psychopath City.
Okay, I want to see a tie into XR and climate change in the world
I
burning
will get there.
Let's talk about Hillary. Go ahead.
I'm talking about XR. I'm just taking a deviation.
Okay,
so,
fair enough.
And the deviation I'm taking is to show you, especially if you're in XR, you need to be alert that this is PSYOPs, right? So it has all the smell and feel of PSYOPs. And I want to explain to you what that is, because most people go and, say, oh, you're just attacking XR because, you work for the oil industry. And there's no. Listen to how these things work. So the reason why Hillary didn't get elected is complicated, but Putin kind of did his best to stew a goose, and the reason is that she did one of these campaigns as Secretary of State. She ran XR in Russia. She did XR in Russia. Erica Chenoweth's straight from Erica Chenoweth's playbook and everything. That's why it smells and stuff, like the genuine thing. If you look in Hong Kong, it's like the same in Iran after all these things where you have these grassroots spontaneous uprising. Always look for the State Department. So in Hong Kong, the guys, where they're all holding, American flags there and stuff, like, guys, this is how they work. This is the U.S. State Department. Xi Jinping has come out and said, like, America, stop your shit in Hong Kong.
Yeah,
and it's like, what shit? Right here, squirrel. Typical psychopath, And it's like, yeah. So what they'll do is they'll get a genuine rebellion. So basically, you get to. I'm not saying, I don't have any proof that it's controlled opposition of. I'm just giving you a flavor of it so that if you can find some genuine evidence. But it's hard to find because they don't do it, they don't sit down and plan it from the ground up. They do it by promotion. So they get some good souls like Roger and Gail, and then basically they will go and they will promote them so that even they don't know it. So you're saying, like, I know Roger and he's a good guy, and I know Rupert, and I know George Monbiot, and all these, they're all good guys, and say, yes, but that's not how it works. They pave the way for them. They put petals from them. So everything happens like magic, and they go, well, that was easy. We must be geniuses, and saying, no, you're missing the stupidity checklist. And that's basically, if you look like a genius, right, you're saying, like, there's something wrong here. There's like, the world is being stupid. What's going on? And I'm telling you, it's a trick.
Okay. So can I ask you this?
Yeah.
What about Greta?
Well, okay. So this is what I wanted to focus on. And this one is Greta. I wanted to do Greta in this. And this basically, maybe we got there with Greta. Okay.
So let me ask this question. So there's this girl. It's just a normal girl, right? Just an average girl. And she wants to go to school, and she finds out what's going on, and she strikes at school. She says, I don't want to go to school. Why would I go to school if this is happening? Instead of going to school, because by the time I get out of school, we're all going to be, dead, right? And so now she's talking at the Economic Forum. She's talking at the UN. So how does she rise to the top? And where does she fit in how does she pass your tests?
Okay, so she's manufactured. But here's the thing. Is if you look at a bit deeper on the history of that, and it's all a put-up job. So if you look at, like, Deep Green, or Wrong Kind of Green, she exposed where Greta's coming from, and it's not entirely bad because the guys controlling her, I haven't quite put my finger on who it is. I think it might be the, Union of Concerned Scientists or somebody like that. There's also another Christian group, so they're always lurking around there. But anyway, she's being used, and everybody knows that. But here's the thing: she knows it too. She sat down. Michael Moore sat down and said, don't let them control you. And she says, like, I know.
And you've been so good about staying true to yourself, and not allowing yourself at 16 to be, I don't want to say used, but I mean, they have good intentions, I'm sure. Some of them don't. Some of them probably would like to make some money or whatever. But you know, the more you're able to stay true to yourself, the easier it will be on you. And
don't let people exploit you or try to own you or try to. I mean, you must say no to a whole lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, basically every request I get, I have to say no to.
And, you know, it's like, so the question, so there's, without a doubt, she's being used in this way by people that are probably do-gooders. I wouldn't come out and say that those guys were out and out psychopaths. They're not, because they're not working for themselves, right? They're working for the planet and higher causes and stuff like that. But they have an agenda. And so the agenda is not bad. It's like, you know, save the planet or some shit like that. But then here's the problem is that they're not thinking through what they're doing and how they save the planet. They're just, you know, pushing their message, save the planet, and it gets really complicated really quick when you talk about motives. But let's just pretend their motives are pure. They are not against the system, right? So here's the problem, is the system is the meta-psychopath. So we're only psychopaths in our society because the system has bred them. The overall psychopath is the system itself. And it's something I'll explain the dynamics and later on how it works, but it's to do with the hierarchy. It demands that, you know, basically people backstab their way to the top. And that's why you get psychopaths. It rewards psychopathy because the resources are centralized, and so you have to play King of the Hill or Game of Thrones to get anywhere in the system. So it is our meta psychopath. So we're really against the system overall. If you take the system down, there will still be psychopaths left, but not many. They're probably okay. If you ask Robert Hare, who's the leading authority on psychopathy, he doesn't know the extent of the problem. They would tell you that basically, I think a clinical psychologist would say psychopathy runs at about 1% in the population. They're clueless. Robert Hare recently went into the American workplace. These guys are all in ivory towers. They're academics or closeted off in their clinics. They never see the guys because the psychopath will never come into a clinic. Basically, the last place a psychopath will ever come into is a clinic. So the only ones they see have come into prison. And those are the guys that are stupid. They're not very skilled psychopaths. So they wind up in prison because they're not very good at playing the game. Like Donald Trump is pretty good at playing the game, and he'll probably wind up escaping prison.
But Bernie Madoff failed, right? Someone like him.
Yeah, you see, he did. Yeah, you see, but there's also the more vicious kind than Bernie. Bernie Madoff is kind of a soft touch because he's just giving people what they want, and they wanted, you know, growth, eternal growth and prosperity, regular income, and so he gave it to them. But he's not that bad. The guys that'll do anything, they have no limits and no conscience. Those guys, they wind up because they overcook it, normally by putting somebody's, you know, head in the fridge. So the end result is that clinical psychologists see only about 1%, and they get them in the prisons and stuff. They're not even seeing the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah,
they don't know that they are basically the foot soldiers for the meta-alien cortex, which is our fucked up system. And so they don't know that. They think the system is good. They've done a Jordan Peterson. The essence of Jordan Peterson is somewhere along the line in his history, probably very young, I'd say around about 4 or something. He came to the conclusion, I'll bet you, if anybody knows Jordan Peterson, I challenge you to fact check me on this one by asking him, but I bet you that there's somewhere in his history where he came to the conclusion that you cannot beat the system, you cannot fight it, so you have to work with it. And from that day forward, he's really an agent for the system and very evil for that reason.
He becomes a high priest of the system.
He does.
So does Richard Dawkins. Richard Dawkins is a high priest of the system, right?
Yeah. You see, that's the danger, is that
Steven Pinker.
If you make that bargain and say, look, this is too, this is the way the world is, so then you throw back your shoulders and you face it. That's what Jordan Peterson's saying. That's the philosophy that he's come to, and he must have come to it very early in life. But my way of thinking is, if it's an evil system, you throw back your shoulders and you face it. You say there's no profit in facing it. That's what Jordan Peterson has figured out, that there's no profit in fighting the system. So don't fight the system. This is how you get on with it. And you say, well, you're just promoting psychopathy. Basically, you're given a formula for how you rise in the hierarchy. But then what do we do about all these tyrants? And Jordan Peterson says, well, they rise to the top and basically it's evil and you have tyranny and we have to remove them. Okay, Jordan, how? Well, I don't know. Well, that's just not fucking good enough, is it? So how about this? Is you throw your shoulders back, and in my way of thinking, you say you fight the system. There's no profit in it. You probably won't win. No anarchist to this day has ever won except a small length of victory, probably in small areas for a limited length of time, and they've just rounded on us and ground us to dust. So, but the meaning to life you have is putting back your shoulders and facing it, because now we're getting to the end game. And at some point, the system destroys itself. So anarchists will have our day. It's a Pyrrhic victory because we've just inherited a burnt out earth. So, but that's my answer to Jordan Peterson, is you don't throw your shoulders back and support it. You throw your shoulders back and fight it. And
well, right.
I just seems obvious to me.
Do you feel like that applies to Gail, Rupert, and Jem Bendell as well, that the XR people, that they need to face the system is...
Okay, now there's a very...
what is deep
licorice all sorts there?
What is deep adaptation?
You just threw a lot of licorice all sorts in the same bag. Okay, so you mentioned Rupert and Guy Bendell. Now you have to be careful about those guys. And I'm as I said, I'm not going to take scalps here. We haven't got time for that bullshit. So if there's a chance that like Rupert or Jem actually watch this, it's like, if I'm talking shit, then it's fine. I'm talking shit about a mythical person or your public personality or something like that. But just give me an email and tell me, hey, you got that so wrong, and we'll explore it. But the thing is, this is the persona you're presenting, and this is what I'll deal with. So, okay, so I'm not going to take any scalps, because these guys are public figureheads and they're leading people. They're people trashing their lives. They're getting doxxed. There are going to be serious consequences for what they're doing. They're going to be police dragnets. Don't expect that people won't wind up by Mel Gibson at some part in their story with XR. It's on the cards. So I just put that out there, because you have no, maybe you don't know where this is leading. It's all nice now, but I've seen where this goes. So I'm telling you, you have a responsibility to make sure that you take criticism that I give. Okay, so that's my caveat up front. But okay, having said that, you've got to watch out for guys like Bendell and Rupert, because they're not serious about the revolution. It's kind of an ego trip. So both of them, they privileged, they're aristocrats. So, Jem Bendell went to Cambridge. Rupert Reed went to Oxford. Rupert Reed went to school with Boris Johnson. So you must see them, they're not that far apart. And
they're classmates.
They're classmates. They were literally classmates. So this is the thing, is that you have to ask yourself, are they going to betray their class? And I don't think so. So this is, you see the kind of dynamic you're talking about here. Somebody like, take Rupert Reed for example. Let me paint this caricature, but he seems like this kind of character to me. He's kind of like a guy that got an aristocrat that got basically disparaged over the dinner table. So he got a social slight at the dinner table. Somebody said to him, okay, imagine this in your mind. He's sitting down with Boris Johnson again across the table, and Boris Johnson does the snide little comment to Rupert Reed and say, hey, Rupert, how's the political career going on? Doing any good in the Green Party? And Rupert goes, yeah, you see, your conventions of the thing, he's got to be nice and decorous. And then he says, well, it's going okay, blah, blah. And he keeps face, but inside he's seething. And he goes and like says, okay, screw this. I'm going to get a rebellion of the plantation. I'm going to get all the slaves, and I'm going to teach those fuckers around that table. I'm going to teach them a fucking lesson. Then he goes and rouses all the slaves and say, it's a rebellion. And those slaves are all like, right, it's a rebellion. And you say, what are we going to do, Rupert? We're going to let their tires down. I'll teach them. And the slaves are like, right, we let all their tires down. Now what? And say, no, that's it. That'll teach them. I feel pretty good about that. So, like, he's not leading a rebellion. He's basically getting his own back on his own class. Be careful.
Right. Yeah. The Mr. Broccoli syndrome, right? Cosplay in the streets. And I see you sent me something earlier about XRs breaking up into these little cultural groups, dancing goths. And what's that got to do with
fun? That was just a bit of.
Well, my point is, so you said that psychopaths, it's all about divide and conquer, right? Psychopaths always divide a room, divide and conquer.
Yeah, so what I'm doing with XR is a lot of people say, hey, you're dividing XR. That's not entirely untrue, but that is a psychopathic tactic. So, but I'm hopefully not being a psychopath. I'm really pointing out divisions that already exist. So if you do an Erica Chenoweth and you just basically throw the whole world into a room and say, now we just need a posse, basically she's done a very superficial analysis and saying, based on the numbers in a spreadsheet, you throw this many people into a room and then you have 3.5% and then you go, no, they'll be divided, right? They're basically, you will have people on opposite ends, you'll have a yin and yang in one room, and that's not what we're talking about. Successful revolutions are not about this, numbers gathering activity. So you must think of it more like assembling and refining uranium. So basically, you're making an atomic bomb as a revolution. So you need to refine people. You basically have a central point, kind of like I'm doing this with Exxon Med in a way. Is you have a central point where you can basically refine, get uranium-238. You need to refine all the uranium-235 out of it so you have like a kilogram of basically fissile material. That's what you do. Erica Chenoweth is saying in effect, like, I've looked at it and if you look at these successful revolutions, they have, say, for example, they say, I've looked at them and look at the spreadsheets, 50% of them are complete nutters. Therefore, nutcases run at about 1% in the population. So if you need 1,000 nutcases, then you need 10,000 people, and it's 3.5%. Yay. They're saying like, no, that's not how it works. If you get 3.5% of the population, you've only got, 1% nutcases. You haven't got anything. It's not fissile material. It's fucking useless. But she doesn't understand that.
Yeah.
You see, the reason why in normal rebellions, say if you go to the commune in Paris or something like that, basically, if you went to the Internationale, right, where Proudhon and all of these guys, kind of duked it out. What they're doing there is they're assembling the fissile material. They're assembling the U-235. Now that's what Roger's trying to go around that process and just do a lunge for the numbers based on Erica Chenoweth's doctrine. And you're doing a lunge for clay. It's not detonatable material. So there's a good reason why you'd have a controlled opposition opt for that, because that's what they want you to do. They just want you to basically do a safety valve and bleed off pressure from the population. So you just get a large amount of pressure, get them to do some non-violent activity that's harmless to the system and just bleed off pressure. And that's what the State Department would do. That's a very good target. They know eco-terrorism is coming, and they've prepared. I've gone back and looked, and they've been preparing for 2 decades for eco-terrorism. So no preparation for climate change, right? Mitigation or climate change.
That's a good point.
Now, guys, think that through. Think that through. The guys are not preparing for, basically getting out of this situation. Think it through. Apply the stupidity test. Why are they not doing anything? It's not because they're stupid, okay? They are super smart. Don't make that mistake. If they're not doing anything for climate change, think why. Go to bed at night and don't go to sleep until you figured out why they're not doing it. Why are they hyper-reactive? They've done 2 decades of planning for eco-terrorism and 0 planning for climate change mitigation. It's not because they're asleep at the wheel. Do the stupidity test on yourself. It's a very good place to start.
Well, XR comes onto the scene, and suddenly they're passing all these laws about assembly and all these draconian laws.
All of these things came
They can
before.
pass laws that fast to stop protests. It seems like they can pass a bill in a week.
No, they've been setting up they've been prepping in ways you wouldn't believe. They've been setting up a legislative body that a lot of the time on the guise of being jihadists and anti-Muslim things, and that it's in some ways those early things like 9/11 and stuff with Islamic terrorists. Those paved the way for a more general framework for dealing with what they're really scared of, and that's an internal eruption. So those guys kind of did them a favor in a big way, and so they have a legislative framework and stuff to basically attack eco-terrorists when they arrive, and finally. At some point, they're all prepped and ready, and they're still waiting, and there's no big backlash. And they think, well, there's going to be one soon, so we better start a controlled opposition so that we can seed it and basically control it, and that's what they do. And so they'll infiltrate it, and they will. The infiltrators will steer it. How do you know all this? Well. I haven't got any proof of it. It's just the feel of it. But you'll know them by their fruits. And so it's particularly alarming, the stuff like I keep on telling them to do stuff like, hey, like a death strike for climate. And then they won't touch it. And then all the feedback I get is like, oh, that's basically the nuclear option. We'll keep that in reserve. And you say like, okay, there's something that doesn't smell right, because
what are we waiting for?
We have a climate emergency,
right?
In which case it's like Gail says, 20 Hitler problem and stuff. You've got a nuclear weapon, and saying like, why aren't you using it? That's very, very suspicious.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense there's no sense of urgency. They just want to talk about COP25. For me, it was the last week. So in the last week, they had the World Economic Forum, and Greta got up on the first day, and it seemed like you wrote that talk. It really did. It seemed like you wrote what she said. I mean, it's line for line. It's like, we got to stop zero, not net zero, but zero emissions. Stop all funding immediately. All subsidies immediately. Banks could do that. Governments could say, you know what, we're not going to fund we're not going to subsidize fossil fuels anymore. These are things that they could actually do. And here's what's crazy. So she says that on Monday. Then Rupert Reed gets on the BBC, and he's like, we'll see. We need to talk about, you saw what he said on the BBC. He doesn't have that sense of urgency that Greta has. I don't understand that. She's saying we have to fight. Look at her rhetoric in that talk. And then look at what Rupert says, like 3 days later, right?
If you analyze what Rupert says at Davos, he's talking about the private jets, and it's all kind of distractions and stuff like this. And the thing is that he is amongst his class. All those guys in Davos are really his class, and so. He's not going to go on the BBC. He's basically a politician. So he's not going to, it's like, who's that scumbag? Who's the guy? He didn't make it to president, but he came close. And
John Kerry?
Yeah,
talking
John
about?
Kerry.
John
That's who
Kerry?
I'm thinking of. You
Yeah,
tell
John Kerry.
That's great. It's basically he did Vietnam protests.
Yeah, in the
Everybody
60s.
threw their medals in a fire.
Yeah.
And he threw the ribbons. You know, he's like, oh, no, he's not really going to throw away the freaking medals. And Rupert's like that too. He's like, look, I'll do this climate change thing, but I'm not throwing away my creds with the with my class. So I'm not going to go out in Davos and on the BBC attack the banksters, and the banksters are the guys.
So it wasn't. I wasn't disappointed because he didn't attack the banksters. I was disappointed he didn't back Greta. He could have just said, listen to Greta's speech on Monday. I'm not going to say anything more. We're backing Greta. What she's called for, we're supportive of it. She's got some environmentalists behind her. I mean, in her speech, she talks about coal miners in Poland, right? That lost their jobs, that are willing to fight climate change. They're going to retool. And she's saying, why aren't you guys even trying? The banks aren't even trying to stop this. They're not even talking about it. And so why doesn't Rupert just back Greta? He doesn't have to throw anybody into the bus. He just has to say, I'm with Greta.
Okay, I'll go out on a limb and I'll say that basically there's something inside his head that's telling him that Greta's terribly dangerous.
Are they afraid of Greta?
They're afraid of Greta. So
and her message?
No. It's what she's saying. It's basically it's what she represents. So okay, so let's get into Greta then, because Greta's an archetype, right? She's a stock character and a Jungian archetype. Basically, she's playing the role, a well-worn role. It's basically Joan of Arc, right? And so it's very hard to tell whether Greta's writing her own stuff. I mean, there's a lot of evidence that when she went off message. Okay, so basically the guys controlling her clearly are, pro the system. They want the system to be modified. They haven't lost faith in the system.
So their strategy is they want Greta to help them get to a new Green New Deal. She doesn't want that, but that's what they want her.
They want Greta to help them reform the system. They're primarily reformers. See, Greta's not going to stay the course on reform. If she stays true to the archetype, she's about quite soon, I'd say, about to break ranks. And so at that stage, they'll have to do basically have to put her out to pasture. But she's going to bite the hand. If she carries on much longer, you can see the progression is she'll bite the hand that feeds her. And at that point, they're going to say, down, bad pup, and try and put it down. Then it's a very critical point, is if she has a critical mass. And I think she's probably got a critical mass already. The critical mass is basically, has she got the child army and the pedo army, which I'll explain later. But basically, yeah. So
let's not go there right now. Keep going. Keep going. What you're saying.
but I'll come back to that. But she's a more powerful archetype than all of them put together. Archetypes are very important, and she's a Jungian archetype. So okay, now. It won't surprise you that she is an archetype of Kali. So Kali has many aspects, and one of them is an old woman. So yeah, let's talk Jungian archetypes. So Jung mentioned that he said that this is your unconscious. It is because of what we talked about last time. It's your right brain and stuff like that. So he said basically, if in dream analysis, then they would say, if you have this image of this old woman coming, I think Jung said he had one dream where he was in a carriage, and she's an old woman is kind of running alongside the carriage, pulling at his sleeve, saying this, and he realized when he analyzed the dream that it's his unconscious saying he's ignoring something which he was. So that kind of thing is your deeper instincts, and your unconscious pulling at your sleeve is that's the old hag, right? With some frightening aspects like Sheila gigs and stuff like that, but let's not go into that. So that's the old hag aspect of Kali. There's another manifestation of Kali, and that's the little girl. And so this is Greta's archetype. She's doing this little girl image. Now, there's a very important thing in the story, which I think most of the world missed, but I think in terms of psychology, it's a big movement in if you trust me on this analysis based on archetypes and stuff. But the thing I'm talking about, and I must now find this and splice it in if I can, it's hellishly difficult because it was on the BBC and they'll ding you for copyrights and YouTube will strip it automatically and I have to do some clever editing to just get it past. But anyway, what the archetype is, if I can play it for you, is David Attenborough meets Greta.
Oh, wow, that was powerful. That was powerful.
It's iconic because
it is.
You see, there's the two archetypes. So David Attenborough is the Senex, what Jung called the Senex. It's the old man. It's the wise old man. It's Gandalf. It's Merlin, right? So these characters like Merlin are they kind of chimeras. They kind of like Merlin's only half human, right? So they always have this kind of otherworldly, shamanic aspect, right, to them. They are actually Kronos and Yahweh and stuff like that. So so don't assume that like Gandalf characters and that are always the good guys.
Right.
So all of these, while we're here, I hope I'm not pissing anybody off with this kind of analysis because people say, "Oh, this is pop psychology drivel." It's not. It's not at all. All these things have dual aspects. So, like the Senex they have kind of good and evil, and they have a shadow side. So the shadow side of that, the old man character, the character that David Attenborough played, probably without realizing it, is the good form of that. The bad form is Kronos and Yahweh and stuff like that. So that's the shadow side, what Jung would call the shadow side. Now, Greta is also kind of one of these changeling creatures and stuff. And what she's really doing is in that archetype, that little girl is kind of sexually dimorphic. She's kind of you see with Greta is she looks quite tomboyish. You know, she's very young looking for her age. You know, she's like 16 now. And she's very boyish. She's flat-chested. She often looks like she's in boys' clothes. She's, it's kind of dysphoria, gender dysphoria about her, and that's an important type of image, and that makes it powerful. And later they're going to be so Joan of Arc was the same, right? She
same thing happened there.
Yeah, you see, they got Joan of Arc in the end, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things they got her for was her cross-dressing, right? And they say in Deuteronomy, they pulled out a piece that says, you're not allowed to cross-dress. And so they, and there's a good reason for it because that's a powerful archetype, and they're trying to keep that archetype away. So here's my interpretation, like, go hog wild and shoot me down for it if you want. But this is my interpretation of David Attenborough and Greta meeting. So it's done on the BBC. Now, the BBC is pure alien cortex city. It's propaganda for the alien cortex. Okay, it is the establishment. It is the machine. And what's happening there was bad in terms of Jungian archetypes. You see, what it was presented as, and almost ritually supervised in a way, you can just hear off camera, if I remember it correctly, is the woman that's kind of narrating it. She says, and this is like David Attenborough handing over the baton of climate awareness.
Yeah, the baton. Yeah.
Young Greta. Now, it's very important that
Yes.
she comes out with that narrative. It's a control narrative. And what she's doing is she has to make sure that David Attenborough hands over the baton to Greta. Why it's all controlled and why they have to do this voices is they have to keep them apart. See, if the Senex winds up with Greta, let's call her Peter Pan. Peter Pan's one of the aspects of what she's doing, or Joan of Arc. But if David Attenborough winds up in cahoots with Greta,
Yeah.
that's the nitroglycerin. That the system is going to get the shit blown out of it.
Yeah. If David Attenborough actually works directly with her on a project,
yeah,
you've got it just.
So it's very important that, you know, you hand over the torch, you keep this one away, and she's almost the announcer woman's almost a chaperone, saying keep these two apart, and so it's almost like, you know, that it has to be sterilized. It's very dangerous, you know. Basically, if the world can see David Attenborough and Greta forming an alliance on BBC television, that is.
I don't know why people are listening to me. I don't know how long it will last. I just know that right now people are listening to me, and I need to use that opportunity and to try to get out as much as I can during that time. But I mean, that's what you need to do, because they're obviously not listening, and you need to repeat it until people get it, until it is being understood.
Greta Thunberg, David Attenborough, I hope you get to meet in person sometime.
Yes.
And so do I, and until we do, I do thank you very much.
It's a very uncomfortable archetype, especially for our society, because we have all these things about, you know, pedophilia and stuff, rankles, you know, it's hanging in the air with it. So,
well, can I stop you there just for 1 second?
Yeah.
I want to mention Joan of Arc real quick about her trial and how they got her. She was burned at the stake or killed or whatever because she cross-dressed, and her argument in court.
No,
and she
was burned at the stake because she's a power figure. So she's nitroglycerin.
But her
defense. They were finding excuses, right?
But her defense for wearing pants and dressing like a man is because she didn't want to be raped. And she said, if I'm just wearing a dress, I can easily be raped. And I'm wearing pants and I'm dressed as a soldier to hide my gender because I don't want to be raped. That was a big deal.
I think she was raped. You see, she
may have been raped, but that was her defense.
Yes, but you see, they just trying to put her in a catch-22. So a lot of the people that say, oh, well, she wasn't raped, they say that her guards threatened to rape her unless she put men's clothes on. So she did actually sign a confession. And then in that confession, the whole thing is has she got demonic possession or divine possession? And they had to say that she's a demonic being, because otherwise she's a kingmaker. So the king can't afford to have a kingmaker. He has to dispose of a typical psychopath's fashion. And so they have to put her in a catch-22. And so she signs a thing signing off that she will never put on men's clothes again. When she's dangerous in men's clothes. If she wears a dress, she can't, like, you know, mount a battle charger and lay siege to Orleans and stuff like that. And so the system's relatively safe as long as she stays out of, stays in a dress. But when she suits up in armor, then they're in bad territory. And so that's in essence what they're forbidding her to do. Now, the guys that say, oh, well, she wasn't raped, they say that her jailers got her by saying, you put on these male clothes or we will rape you. It's ambiguous. I think she probably was raped and she put on the men's clothes as defense, kind of suicide. So it's kind of so after she's raped, she's kind of befouled. So the whole essence of this archetype is purity. Yeah. So what this archetype is, it's called I can't remember what the Latin word is, but we get the word puerile from it. It's called, okay, I'm going to have to take a Slumdog Millionaire time out to look at the internet for this one, because it's worth looking up.
Okay,
this
look it up.
For what she is. So let me have that.
Okay.
3 hours later.
Can you move it along? I'm all out of time cards.
Okay, so I've got it. So I've got it here, and
Okay.
what it is, it's puer eternus. Puer eternus, sometimes shortened to puer, Latin eternal boy. You see, she's got that tomboyish look, that eternal tomboyish look. In mythology, is a child god, and yeah, she's playing the child god Kali version style, right? Who is forever young. Nobody wants, nobody wants Greta to grow up, right? It's like,
we like her just the way she is. We love Greta just the way she is.
Yeah. No one wants to think of Greta at 30. It's kind of a tragedy.
No, I don't want to see. She's just awesome the way she is.
Exactly. So everybody wants her frozen. And so, okay, so here it gets interesting. In psychology, it is an older person whose emotional life has remained at an adolescent level, which is also known as Peter Pan syndrome. So, okay, now Peter Pan syndrome and J.M. Barrie.
Marie-Louise von Franz, a Swiss psychologist, noticed a disturbing trend in the mid-20th century. Many men and women who were well into their adult years remained psychologically stunted in their maturation. They occupied the bodies of adults, but their mental development failed to keep pace. Von Franz saw this as such a pressing issue that in 1959 she gave a series of lectures on the psychology of the puer eternus, which is Latin for eternal child. While originally this term was used in mythology to refer to a child god who remains forever young, her teacher Carl Jung had adopted the term for psychological purposes to describe the individual who, like Peter Pan, fails to grow up.
Oh boy.
So Pan is Dionysus. So this is the nature god. And Peter Pan, the boy that never grew up, J.M. Barrie was leaning on Dionysus, and it's from Ovid's Metamorphosis. And here it says it's right here. So I'll read you. The puer in mythology, the phrase puer eternus comes from Metamorphoses, an epic work by the Roman poet Ovid. So Ovid's very important. I won't go into it, but he's important in an underground school. Take my word for it. But that school is also Shakespeare's school, and Shakespeare's leaning very hard on Ovid and Metamorphosis. So in King Lear, we've got if you take the wise old man as one side of the David Attenborough archetype, then there's the foolish old man, and then that's King Lear, right? So that's what was happening now. Oh damn you! These guys go deep and quick. So I'll try to pull back from it, but. Yeah, okay, here you go. Ovid, basically in the Eleusinian Mysteries, and the Eleusinian Mysteries were basically they developed into a cult, and I was in this latter day version of this cult. So anyway, I don't want to go into all that now. So it's later identified with the gods Dionysus and Eros. Yeah, so Eros basically is Eros, or don't forget the winds, right? So the winds are important in Greece in the four quarters. So Eros is the east wind. It's a moist wind. Even today here in Greece, where I am, this is where all these archetypes were developed. And so if you're in Greece, the east wind is moist. It brings rain and unsettled weather, and so it's the element of sexuality, right? You have a look what it's opposed to. It's the west wind. The west wind is Zephyr. So Zephyr is really cute because the west wind is hot and dry. It's kind of like the wind of climate change. It comes from the machine. And Zephyr is an interesting word because we get our word cipher, right? So if the NSA, the machine, cipher, computers, the alien cortex comes on the west wind. and it
Okay.
opposes Eros and the east wind and the archetype that Greta's in.
So isn't Eros, that's like fertility, that's children, that's the future,
Yeah.
that's mankind, that's life.
Yes. It Pan. She's the mother goddess. So Greta is fighting for life.
Right. She wants to have children. She wants to have, grandchildren. So she talks about two things. First of all, she talks about her lifestyle. She wants to have her lifestyle and grow up and grow old and have a nice life, right? But she also talks about she wants to have children and grandchildren. And the army of teenagers behind her, both male and female, they want to have children. This is about the future. It's not about, Greta's not arguing for money. She wants life. Right?
Okay, so
there's fertility mixed in there somewhere, right?
Yeah. So let's just go into the Greta having children thing. So on the five, let's take the 5 brain model, so we can just present it to your alien cortex. So basically, on the 5 brain model, she's an even balance. Part of the chimeric aspect of the thing, she's an even balance between the mammalian brain and the alien cortex. So she has Asperger's syndrome. I don't believe there's even such a thing as Asperger's syndrome. Asperger's syndrome is the way the alien cortex pathologizes itself in other people. So basically, the whole thing about it basically Asperger's syndrome, according to me, is basically it's hyper alien cortexivity. It's basically it's alien cortex or cortexitis in a way. And so you get the black and white. Everything is very cut and dried, and that's her aspect. Her aspect. She says, like, I've done the maths, I've done the science and stuff, but it's not what we talked about last time, where on the left wing you have particularly the communists and this kind of thing, and XR2, it's the mama bear with a computer strapped on it.
Right.
In her case, the computer and the mama bear have equal weight. Right.
It's a balance. She's balanced between the two.
Absolutely balanced between those two, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Calculating, right? So Joan of Arc, she calculated, right? There's nothing that Joan of Arc did that wasn't calculated. She miscalculated. But anyway, so this is why they have to keep the David Attenborough, the Senex, the wise old man, the Merlin wizard, away from her, because she, in the way the system works, she's going to get trapped on her own. Like they're going to get her with a number of articles. They're going to list her as a bill of goods, and they're going to burn her at the stake. If she has a Senex behind him, she has all the wisdom and stuff, so that she can sidestep it. So what David Attenborough will keep on telling her, don't do this, do that. And if he directs her, then she's invulnerable. So let me go a bit into her invulnerability. There's now this is bad. And that these guys that are controlling Greta, they must not do this. If you know one of these people, tell them to stop. This is bad mojo, what they're doing here. They're using her as a human shield, right?
I'm a middle-aged man with an embarrassing problem. I get irrationally angry at a Swedish girl who wants to save the planet.
Hello, you've called the Greta Thunberg helpline.
If you're a grown adult who needs to yell at a child for some reason, the Greta Thunberg helpline is here to tolerate you. We'll listen no matter how ridiculous you sound. It's okay. We understand that children acting like adults can make adults act like children.
I think if I'm honest, I'm just jealous that she got a free cruise to America.
This is also Hallam's tactic in a way. He's like trying to get the blood of the children. Because then, if you can basically
make her a martyr.
Brain is real power. If Mama Bear screams, you fucking listen. That's the voice of Carly. And so what Roger Hallam is trying to do is trying to get the blood of the children on the streets. If he can get the state to overreact, And this call out to a movie straight here is V for Vendetta, that basically they get a little girl, kind of Greta-ish in fact, and basically if the system overreacts, shoots a little girl, then basically Mama Bear's on your side, and then you can't lose.
There's so much chaos, someone will do something stupid. And when they do, things will turn nasty.
Rioters were arrested in Brixton.
And then Sutler will be forced to do the only thing he knows how to do.
That's what Hallam's trying to do. He's trying to do basically the Children's Crusade in Alabama.
The other reason why civil disobedience works is because of sacrifice. To cut a long story short, the British military police lined up in a line. Gandhi's followers walked towards the military police to get to the sand and the coast. They were calm, they were civil, they were plainly dressed, totally non-violent. They walked up to the military police. The military police got out their truncheons and split open their heads. There was blood everywhere. The photographs went round the world. The film footage went round the world. There was a massive international scandal, and that was the moment when the veneer of British superiority in India cracked and vanished forever. The civil rights movement on the phone saying, don't do it, it's stupid, it's reckless, it'll split the movement. Sound familiar? Martin Luther King was on the phone, don't do it. They did it anyway. They set off down to Atlanta. They were surrounded by the Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan set fire to the coach. They dragged the students out and they beat them up. What happened next? Another 25 students got on the bus and came down south. They were hauled up in a coach station surrounded by a mob. It was touch or go whether they were going to die or not. It was on all the front pages of national press. That's what happens when you draw the violence out for all to see.
Those guys were a bunch of cunts, to put it mildly. And I'm not going to bleep that out. But what they did was they put kids on buses and bussed them in because they were using them as human shields. That's Saddam. Saddam Hussein. It's psychopath city that doing that stuff.
Let's look at the Children's March. 1963, Birmingham, Alabama. Martin Luther King can't get people to go to prison. This DJ comes up to him and says, I'll get people into prison for you. What he doesn't tell Martin Luther King is it's the kids. What happens after 7 or 8 days? The authorities give in.
Saddam Hussein did exactly the same thing. He got that English family, got that little boy, if you remember back in the Gulf War there, and he used them as human shields, patting that little boy on the head. Do you ever remember that one?
Yeah, I remember that. Well, I remember that. And then, whenever you're, like taking children and you're putting them in a bus, you're putting them in harm's way, you're taking them away from their parents, you're putting them in a cage, you're making them suffer, making children suffer, traumatizing them, or putting that risk of death just to incite violence or incite the cause.
No, it's incite the mama bear.
Incite the mama bear. Get all the mothers to scream and say, what are you doing to the children? And then putting...
Yeah. If they can get an outrage from the mother bear, it's maternal rage. It's like the state cannot, basically the patriarchy is done. When mama's not seldom roused, but if you rouse her, there is shit in the house, bro.
Mom's pissed. When mom gets pissed, it's over. Game over. Even dad can't save your bacon.
Exactly. You're going to know who the boss in the house is now. Because we are in the house, we're in the domus, right? civilization is the dumbest. It really is Mama Bear's place. She's just putting the paternal thing out there as.
And the reason why is because that's life, right? Mama Bear is life.
She's a villain in this story too.
Well, but someone at some point is going to realize that if all of humans die, if we actually go extinct, there are no more children. You're basically all the ovaries on the planet are at risk.
So Mama Bear's making a mistake here, because in the world of, this is all primitive psychology that probably worked up until about the last 10,000 years. So after 11,600 years, Göbekli Tepe starts, and we're in the city.
The city starts.
The city is, and the dome has gone wrong. Now, the thing this overall thing that Gail talks about all the time, it's always the patriarchy, and we're going to decolonize XR and stuff like that. Well, it's what she's missing herself is behind the scenes is the Eminence Grise. It's the evil behind the throne. And then I'm on terribly dangerous territory, but we got to go there because it's our salvation depends on women admitting this, is that they are the real power behind the industrial system. Right.
And the patriarchy.
You see, man made the cars to take us over the road. Man made the train to carry the heavy load. Man made the electrolyte to take us out of the dark. This is a man's world. But it wouldn't be nothing without a woman or a girl.
And they hate that. They do not. They do not accept that. They do not want to accept
that. But we'll get there. We'll get there. And I'll show you why it is, and I'll show you why we have to get beyond that. Our life depends on it.
Beyond patriarchy and matriarchy, we have to get beyond patriarchy and matriarchy thinking.
Yes, and you see, you have to get around this powerful Mama Bear. And so we can get beyond the two, and man alive, I just cringe at the even thought of it, because we got a lot of female views on the last video, and people are, you have to be really against the wall to say, like, I mean, nobody's alien cortex. We're talking to people's alien cortex. Nobody's alien cortex is strong enough to suppress aroused mammalian brain. Nobody can suppress Mama Bear, and we have to if we have any chance at all, we have to.
Well, so what does that look like? You keep saying you got to suppress Mama Bear, and you're using all these Greek terms, and I don't know a lot of Greek mythology. And what do you mean? How does that look like on the ground? How do we suppress or help Mama Bear understand this? What does that look like? You mean men and women working together? Women not wanting a matriarchy and men not wanting a patriarchy, but women and men working together.
No, the idea that they work together out of your system. Is
that just a false? That's a false.
They're never going to work together. It's the yin and yang of the universe. You don't even want them to. We will be frozen in a lake of crystal if we'll be glass if they work together. You don't want them to work together.
So what are you calling for? What do you want from men and women?
Okay, here's the thing. This is where we always get to. This is the oldest story in the anarchist revolution, is just when we're about to kill the snake, the final evil demon, put a stake in its heart, a woman stops us. And
they go Yoko. They pull a Yoko.
Yeah. So okay, I'll give you the exact point, and then I'll take another movie, and the movie is In Time. Okay, I plugged that in. I put this on XR.
Throw the clip up. Show the clip on. Yeah.
And this thing basically propose a war on time. If somebody's looked at these videos, they'll know what I'm talking about. It's a war on Chronos. You do a war on Chronos, the whole system falls down. So anyway, let's not go there. But let's take that movie On Time, and you'll see it happen. There's a place, I will try and splice it in here.
Quality time. Really is a man with 1,000,000 years.
It's my first million. It won't be my last. You know how much good it could do? I know how much harm it could do. Try to understand, even if you gave a year to 1 million people, you're just prolonging their agony.
You're prolonging their lives.
Flooding the wrong zone with 1 million years. It could cripple the system. Let's hope so.
We're not meant to live like this. We're not meant to live forever. Although I do wonder, Father, if you've ever lived a day in your life.
That's so. You might upset the balance for a generation. But don't fool yourself. In the end, nothing will change. Because everyone wants to live forever. They all think they have a chance at immortality, even though all the evidence is against it. They all think they will be the exception. But the truth is, for a few to be immortal, many must die. No one should be immortal if even one person has to die.
But this is what happens. Okay, just if you haven't seen the movie, let's just set it up a little bit. It's basically, it's all about time is money. People have only short time to live. When the clock, everybody gets to 25, they're genetically engineered.
And they have a clock on their arm. It's actually checking down.
Money, right? Just it's like cut out the middleman. Your time is money, and
right.
Actually your lifespan, you have to buy coffee by taking seconds off your life. And so basically, why do they set this system up like that? It's so these guys can be eternal. The guys at the top,
right, have a lot of time.
They basically have infinite lives because basically they're sucking everybody else. They're vampires. So if you look at those guys, in the end, they get to their guy, Justin Timberlake character there is basically at the point where now he's just about to shoot the fuck that basically is doing the whole system, right? He can't do it. Basically what the guys are doing is, the guys that are making the movie, they could have made movie gold, but they can't, because basically they're after money and they know it will be a box office disaster if they do it. So they have to lie, right? And what the lie is, again, the protection is, the producers haven't got the heart. Now, you remember what the heart is? It represents the mama bear.
The heart. Yes, the heart. We learned that in the last video.
Vaginas were invented with the mammal brain, right? Hello. The first time in the evolutionary record where vaginas come on the scene is with a marsupial creature that represents our mammalian forebear. And she's running hot. She's got a complicated little metabolism. And hello, vaginas are in the scene. Basically, lizards only have a coatl, and basically it's a single purpose orifice for everything. And so basically that comes on scene. So that represents caring and sharing and stuff with a litter and caring for young. And so then at the point where they're about to kill the snake, the women always step up and go, "Oh, don't kill it, don't let it live." And that's the mistake we always make. And that's always in history. And so what the guy himself does it. In this case, in On Time, they didn't have her step forward and do it, but he did it himself. He's about to shoot the guy. And if they wanted to make real movie gold and trash all their box office hit, they would have had to basically say, he would have had to done a joke, and he has to shoot the guy. And before he shoots him, he goes, basically it would be a movie. Let me try and do it. He would look at the guy in the face, stick his gun in and say, "We have to die, you cunt. We gotta fucking die. Do you understand? No one is supposed to be immortal." Bam! And that would be a movie that no one would forget. They couldn't do it because they want a box office hit. And they know that that's completely against the system, if they played the scene that I just did there, they will not basically sell a dollar.
Well, that's the scene. That's the scene they shot in the Joker. That's the scene they shot.
The Joker
basically.
did it. That's why it's so dangerous. That's why it's so dangerous.
And it's resonating. For me, it's frightening. It's so frightening that's such a popular movie. But I can understand where
it signals
some people.
That we're getting close to Parasite. So we have to basically, the thing is to get rid of the matriarchy and the patriarchy. You have to shoot both of them, and that's the thing. Is we all
no. Okay, so there's like a female Joker.
I mean, get to the point where we're about to be free, and then
we can't pull the trigger.
We blink because at the bottom we're too nice. We're too nice.
Yeah.
We have the mammalian brain. The workers and the people are our saving grace and our nemesis, our hubris and our Achilles heel is that we're too nice. So you have to be, what I call like a psychopath for an instant or a psychopath for a day. Is you have to be. We're up against psychopaths. And they're absolutely irredeemable. Now, the mammalian brain won't accept that. It's all about agreeableness and sharing all the things that are important in
consensus
and child rearing and stuff. And it's screaming, you cannot do this. You cannot do this. This is evil. You're being as bad as the psychopath, and saying, we have to.
So it sounds to me like what you're really saying on the ground, when we started this rant was about the mama bear, right?
Mm-hmm.
It sounds to me like what you're saying is that women need to let men get the job done.
Exactly.
I think that's what you're saying. You're saying the women in XR, for example, instead of taking the guys in the park and putting them in cosplay, that the women in XR let the men get the job done and encourage them and say, get the job done.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
no, you got it. So there was a corny old book. I don't think anybody reads it now, but it was called Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. And there was
something like that. Yeah. Back in the pop psychology from the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. 80s. Yeah. 80s.
I don't know. I don't remember. Yeah, I remember that Venus Mars thing.
That sort of era. I doubt that anybody in this generation has read it, but it was kind of cool from that point of gender. It's just unpopular now because you're supposed to pretend gender doesn't exist.
Right, exactly.
Good luck with that. Anyway.
Yeah, good luck with that.
So what they said there was it was actually written by a couple, a man and a woman, and they said that basically they gave this kind of example of the woman, because she's agreeable, she tries to help. So you imagine, Prince Charming on a white charger that's going to see down the dragon. Now, this is a metaphor for us getting rid of the alien cortex personified by the psychopaths.
Right.
So the guy on a charger, he can easily do this job. He will cut the head of the snake. What the woman does is she tries to help because she's being agreeable. She says, "Oh, why don't you use this? Why don't you poison the dragon? Why don't you do this?" And she puts rules around it. I've got 10 rules.
You can't do that. Try this.
Do this. Let's get 3.5% and stuff. And you say, like, the guy just like, the only chance the guy is having is like, "Woman, shut the fuck up! I will get this job done. Back off," and then he'll go and do it. But you see, the thing is, there's an element of she's protecting the snake. She doesn't really want the system to come down, and that's
right. That's the problem. They want the warm shower. They want They want the man. They want the man to be safe. They don't want the man to put himself at risk. Right.
And not so much that. They're protecting the washing machine and they're protecting the dishwasher.
The kitchen. Okay, yeah.
You see all this
domestication. They're protecting the city, the domestication.
Yeah, you see all this stuff.
They don't want that city to go away deep in their hearts.
Stuff like that. They ain't ready to give up the washing machine because basically.
And that sounds so misogynistic. It sounds so patriarchally horrible for us. Say that.
Yeah, that's a good thing you pointed that out.
So that sounds horrible for us to say. They just want their washing machine.
Completely. Yeah. Okay. So let me quickly.
That's like horrible.
Okay, so let me quickly qualify that before somebody goes to that territory and uses that just as a soundbite or something like that. Okay, so this is the thing, that when we moved in like just after Göbekli Tepe, by the time you get to Çatalhöyük and stuff about it's 6,000 years BC, but you can see they're in domesticity.
They're making little cities.
Right? You can see the alien cortexes there. They haven't domesticated any animals yet. They haven't. They're just on the cusp of domesticating a few crops and stuff. That basically they've got the grains going. No animals going yet. All animals are still wild. I don't think they even got the dog in Çatalhöyük. So here's the thing: is women still have it good, right? When they start with the grain, right, and then all these cities are based on the grain, because grain you can tax. So if you're eating all of this stuff, and you should be by now, you have to read up on James Scott and against the grain. And so as soon as the full-on city is going and the state starts, then women have got it shit, because then you start to see then in the archaeological record, the knees are gone. You start to see all these repetitive strain injuries, and what they're doing is they're processing grain. If you go to Africa, and basically, I have lots of childhood images of growing up in Africa, and when you see an African kraal, part of the standard image, stock footage in your head, the movie that rolls for the a million times, is basically an African kraal. And what you'll see is two women working in rhythm to pound the maize. So the city is based on starch, and as soon you see the women have opted for a very shitty bargain. What the shitty bargain is they want domesticity, because if they can be in a domus, in a house, right, it seems to be easier for them, because basically they can actually have more children, right? It's not an easy trade, because the infant mortality shoots through the roof. It just so happens that the greater fertility rate is marginally ahead of the mortality rate, the infant mortality rate. So basically, cities from that point on are going to expand. Now, the reason why women opt for it is because as hunter-gatherers, we generally have to move with the herds and stuff like that, right? So we are actually predators and, occasional meat eaters. So we're omnivores, but we do eat meat, right? Particularly taking down an impala or something like that. And actually moving on, Lyra Keith is a great source for this, actually. But
she's amazing.
Yeah, but it's hard on women hunter-gatherers, because they have to do things like exposure. If they can only have one kid at a time. You can't really move on with two kids. So if they have another kid, they have to do contraception, they have to do exposure. They'll have to leave a second kid if they're still nursing one when another one comes along. All of these things are really hard. If they have a kid that's in any way abnormal, they'll have to do exposure, and exposure carries on all the way until very recent times. Until basically in Rome they're still doing exposure. Basically, if they have any kid that's not
viable,
formed, or anything that's going to take an unnecessary amount of resources or anything for any reason, in Rome they will leave the baby on the garbage heap to die. Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, you can clearly see why women opt for a sedentary lifestyle, but things are going to go shit fast. Now, they eventually, in the Industrial Revolution, they get liberation from the pain in a sense, because they start to get these mechanical slaves and basically energy slaves, as Buckminster Fuller calls them. It's a good way to look at them. The washing machine gives you a house full of slaves. Now, where I grew up, we had a house full of chattel slaves.
Yeah.
The genuine slaves. You have to imagine my upbringing. It's on a plantation. So the women are actually complicit in the plantation. Now I'm going to get my head on a stake. But please, if you're a woman, listen to what I'm saying and don't go off on a mama bear rant about gender equality or something like that. It's for our survival. It's important you hear what I'm saying. Is that the women are actually complicit in the plantation, right? They don't actually want the plantation. In a way, what we talked about at the beginning about Rupert Reed and stuff, he doesn't want to burn. He's playing a kind of female role. He doesn't want the plantation system ended, and the reason is that there's always some how can I put it? Eve doesn't really want to go back to the wild, although it's the best thing for everybody. And now you can see it's on the cards, is that basically we're going to go extinct, so nobody's good with this.
And Eve should be mostly concerned about that, because Eve carries the ovaries. She's the future. She's life.
Yeah.
She's Luca, the last common on ancestor of all life.
Yeah.
The women literally carry the future in their bodies from when they're born, right?
Yeah, but
and extinction of life means the extinction of femininity. It means the extinction of women. It means the extinction of motherhood.
Exactly. And so
that's like incomprehensible.
Yeah. So if you don't believe, if you think I'm talking complete horseshit, stem to stern, I can understand that. But here's the thing: is just put it to the test. I can give you a couple of tests to do. You go and challenge people about ending industrial civilization, and you'll get a bigger response against it from women. And the reason is they think they're getting benefit out of it. If you look at XR, it's the sticking point. If I put up postings on XR Med, right, it's very predictable how they get upvoted and downvoted. Is if I go for the jugular on anything that's core anti-civ, I have no insight. I can't see any analytics onto whether it's male or female, but I know from the commentary and stuff and reactions that the more visceral reaction is from the women, because they're secretly thinking, they need the system to protect it. They're thinking it's a better place to bring up kids. If you go out into the wild, they see
it's not safe. It's less safe.
You basically the alien cortex and the lizard brain you're going to get raped out there. It's basically it's a jungle out there, and basically let's keep it safe. It's in Mowgli and the Jungle Book, in all of them, in the Disney version. Because Mowgli is fine in the jungle. At the end of it, it's basically a man cub is domesticated by the woman, drags him into the village, right?
Forget about those, they ain't nothing but trouble. He's hooked.
She's taking slaves, right?
Because she's safe, because she feels she's safer in that village than she is out in the jungle.
Well, she was. But here's the thing: is what our existence. I can't put this strongly enough. Our existence depends on women stop being slave owners. You see, the women are the primary slave owners because she's taking Mowgli as a slave. She's gonna. You see, what women have been doing forever is gathering slaves. We've got some relief when the washing machine comes along, because then that's an energy slave that's mechanical. But in general, like the Victorians, like the Victorian males that went out and this is the whole thing that's so perverse about XR talking about decolonization and stuff. It's like, how can I explain it? Women have to come to admit to themselves that they're the reason for colonization. So let me explain it to you this way. The Victorian gents thought they were in control, right?
The men.
Let them think they were in control, because men were, arrogant, conceited assholes. So the women played on it. I know this because I grew up in the Victorian era. Basically, in South Africa was a little island that lasted from Queen Victoria. Basically, what happens in the colony is they kind of get frozen in time. They time capsules.
Yeah.
They hang on to the language even. If you go to America, they're talking Shakespearean English, right?
Yeah.
If you want to hear Shakespearean English, go to Nantucket or somewhere like that. They're talking, and the reason is in a colony, they freeze the culture. It doesn't develop. The home country goes on to develop. So I know this because I was brought up as a Victorian. But the Victorians, the women own everything. They don't need to put their name on any paper. They control everything. They don't need to vote because they're in control. It's actually a loss of control to go out and vote. The suffragettes were losing control. They had to go out and vote because we're entering the modern era, right? The alien cortex's era. And then basically it didn't work. They were losing their power. So it was a step down what the suffragettes were doing, because it represents a point where, basically women had to go into service in Britain, right? At that time, 60% of so women were in service in those big mansions and stuff like that. And there was that was kind of slavery. If you were lucky and you were an aristocrat, you could be a matriarch and you were untouchable, because you always fielded these men. If some guy launches an army from the other side of the world, you send off these men to get slaughtered for you. You never, if you sit there like the queen bee, and they were all queen bees in those times.
So,
But they cultivated this image. But the reason why the men go off and colonize, okay, this is kind of a caricature, and I'm just presenting it there just to get you thinking in a different way about it, to try and get your whole psychology to flip. So don't shoot me down for the details. I'm just painting a picture so you can develop in your own mind. Don't try and get your alien cortex, basically just what I'm saying now, stimulating the fuck out of women's mammalian brains, right? Particularly on
I can feel the blood pressure. I can feel their blood pressure.
Can see the blood. Every hormone is saying, this guy's a fucking threat to you and yours, and he's going to ruin the house, and the next thing, the babies are going to die. So what they're doing now, I can just anticipate women watching this video, they got their alien cortex engaged, and it's doing the calculating. So it's guaranteed that somebody out there who's a kind of intellectual woman will come back, and they'll go on the attack and try and play chess with me and do all this. They say, don't play chess with me. Please don't do that. Okay. Listen to what I'm saying. It's just, what can I say? Our life depends on it, right? So, okay. So I'm not doing an attack on your mammalian brain. Please give me the benefit of the doubt on that. And listen to what I'm saying, and then don't shoot me down on the details. This is what's happening with colonization. Just a broad brush strokes thing. And basically here I can splice in, it's basically Scarface. Right? Remember that thing? Scarface put it this way. It's iconic.
Bitch. What I try to tell you? Lesbian. What I try to tell you? This country, you gotta make the money first. Then when you get the money, you get the power. Then when you get the power, then you get the woman.
Men are not that bright on the whole, and
men are stupid. Men are stupid.
Yeah, men are lazy and stupid. We would not be burdened with civilization if it was left to men. The only reason why we did it was because of women.
We love women. We love women.
Thank you for protecting me.
Me?
No. I'm only me for me.
Me?
No. To you, I'm you.
You?
I'm Jane Parker. Understand? Jane.
Jane.
Jane. You.
Tarzan. Tarzan.
Tarzan.
Jane.
That's right.
Tarzan. Jane. Tarzan. Jane. Tarzan. Jane. Tarzan. Jane.
Okay, so Scarface gives it to you right there. He says, like, his friend is trying to seduce a woman, but he's batting way out of his league. She's like, no way. And then he's like, damn, these women in like Florida, I can't make any. And then Scarface has got it. And did Scorsese know the movie?
Yeah, I think so.
So Scorsese knew that basically he thought Scarface is a real character, and Scorsese had the insight to see what he was doing. He gets to America and he goes like, I've got this game. It's like, first you get a money. You get a money, you get a power. You get a power, you get any fucking woman you want. And see, even Henry Kissinger said that. He said, like, power is an aphrodisiac. You see, let's go, well, while we're on controversial territory and, fissile material too hot to handle, Harvey Weinstein, right? He learned this lesson.
What a creeper.
Yeah, but see, look at him. He's a kind of ugly guy. Right?
Horrible. Horrific.
Okay, but he knew what the deal was from Scarface. And it's not his deal. He wouldn't have...
Women love power. Women love power. That's the secret. Women love power.
No, but you see, Harvey Weinstein, Scarface, he wants to get laid. It's kind of basically...
Right, and the only way to get laid is to get power.
Yeah, and the women say that. Basically, the women have set up the game, and this is what they have to admit before we can move further. And so we got to get over the gender issue, and it's not like I'm saying is, oh, you're trying to win. It's like...
No. We need to end the gender war.
If you think this is basically men trying to win over women or so, patriarchy, you got me so fucking wrong, you can't believe. I am here to shoot down the matriarchy and the patriarchy.
And I think the reason why is because both of them require the system, and the system is the problem.
But wait a second.
Right?
The system here. Wait. So women have made the rules of the game. They have said to Harvey Weinstein got it, Scarface got it. You've got two options. You either look good, basically on site, you have a pretty face and you're handsome little Brad Pitt. Then basically you can be Johnny Appleseed and you can screw as many women as you want, and you can have little flings in the, basically in the stationary room in the office, and you're kind of untouchable. You can flit around like a little butterfly all you like if you're handsome. Guys are, and I'm in this bag too because I don't look very handsome.
And you're single, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not. I'm married. I've got a wife that watches these videos. So, for the record, I am married.
Well, I can't.
So keep. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Keep going. Keep going. I just want to make sure because
I ain't taking prisoners. We haven't got time for shit. I'm
exactly.
And so I can't not step on anybody's feelings or something. It's like no time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that.
But it sounds like you're complaining about women. It sounds like you're saying, I can't get laid.
No, I'm not doing Bill Burr. Please. If it sounded like I was whinging.
You sounded like Bill Burr. Don't, yeah.
Okay, no. This is not Bill Burr. Okay, this is not Bill Burr.
Okay.
I'm on team female now. I'm on team,
I'm not on team life. Team life.
I'm on team humanity. I'm saying
I want grandchildren. Don't you want grandchildren?
Yes, I want
grandchildren. I'm on team grandchildren. Can we just be on?
Rapidly losing hope that I'll have any.
I want to be a grandpa.
I just can't pass this IQ test. If somebody says what I'm saying, somebody goes blah, 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 into gender war and say, if you go there, you're fucking doomed.
We don't have time for that.
This is hear this over the sound of the battle, right? It's basically this is what I'm trying to communicate to you. I've never been able to do this before, and nobody's ever been able to talk over the gender battle. So give me a bit of slack, right? So so you've got two options. Either you got a pretty face, and then you can do what you fucking like. You're kind of invulnerable. Or otherwise, you're like Harvey Weinstein, and the women have set it up. Then you need resources, right? then your deal is you basically you need power, right? Basically, that's the only way you're going to get laid. So let's cut to the chase here. Basically, men are basically just test tubes and packets of Y chromosomes running around, basically just a tube to get Y chromosomes in some.
We're sperm on legs, right?
Yeah, but we're just Y chromosomes walking around trying to propagate ourselves. That's pretty much all that's going on with men, right? The women set up the rules for how you're going to propagate these Y chromosomes, and they say either you look good, in which case
or you have power.
You're just basically Then Johnny Appleseed is urine, or otherwise you can basically make them comfortable and you can make them secure and you can give them a nest and protect the nest and stuff. And you can expect to be a cuckold as well. But anyway, that's the only deal women really offer for men, right? Okay, and now it's kind of lethal. If they carry on doing that, it's kind of lethal. And the reason is we never get to stop the system, right? So we never get to end the plantation system. So, okay. Have I completely burned out all my points with the female audience here, or do you think I've got any credibility left at all? Do I have any political points? Because I want to burn some more, and I'm just thinking.
You want to fry? I know you want to fry all those political points. You're just going right through. You're just blasting through all that gender war rhetoric bullshit.
I probably had no budget to begin with, but anyway,
right,
should I go into deficit because I kind of want to.
You know what, Hugh? This is your gig. Whatever. Say what you want to say.
Okay, let me go back to the thing where, at the point where we chop the snake's head off, which is the alien cortex or the system and stuff, and then that's where women step in. Where I went with this little loop is saying that women do that because they're not neutral, right? They'll go all the way up to ending the plantation system, but in the end, they want the plantation system so they can have a safe place to have babies.
So at that point, they might betray the man, stab the man, and then take the plantation at the last minute. The last thing they do is...
That's the communist thing.
That's what communists do. At the last second...
So what the communists are doing is they're trying to take over the patriarchy and replace it with the matriarchy.
Right.
It doesn't work, right? We don't
have time for that.
Or matriarchy, yeah. You saw how the communist system collapses. So this is the thing. Anarchists are always stabbed in the back by communists. We generally classed as being on the left. We're not. I would say to any other fellow anarchist is, if you think you're on the left, you're not an anarchist. The reason why we're often classed with being on the left is we have a lot of baggage from the left, and the left gives us an easier ride. But the thing is, the left has always stabbed us in the back in the last moment. It's just the history of anarchy. So basically, the matriarchy personified by communism will engage with anarchists against the patriarchy.
Right, they'll team up.
They will team up. Right.
And then betray at the last second.
Yeah, it's a trick, and we've always fallen for it. To this day, anarchists have never learned. Right.
And there's some movies out there that show this at the last second. The woman.
Movies. They're just fucking real life.
In reality, that happens over and over. And if that happens this time,
see what happened to Nestor Makhano. Nestor Makhano, and then basically in Russia, they fight in the white Russians. That's the fascist side. Right? Lenin, basically, you got to carry on. The Nestor Makhano is in the Ukraine. Ukraine made it that close. We always make it this close, and the women get us in the final hour. The stab in the back, and so basically, Nestor Makhano, he is in the Ukraine, hooks up with the communists, and Lenin lets it ride right all the way, and then bang in the back. When Nestor Makhano and the Ukraine have overthrown the white Russians, right?
Yeah.
then the Bolshevik, God, now we got you. Boom.
Right. Exactly.
But Nestor McConnell made it out of there. He was a lucky dude. There's a Russian movie called 9 Lives of Nestor McConnell. He actually lived, and he retired in Paris. But amazing story, especially for an anarchist. That's not the normal thing for an anarchist.
Well, you know, so you've been using this word anarchy a lot, and I don't consider myself an anarchist. I'm not any archy of any kind.
Well, that's it.
And I don't.
Anarchist. If you're
No.
not,
I don't know the history of anarchy, but I'll tell you, I tried to understand it. You go out on Reddit, and the anarchy community, I don't know what it is, but they don't get along. They don't know what the hell's going on. They're not organized. They're trying to impress women. And you tried to engage with the anarchy community, and it was anarchy.
Anarchy is a mess. So anarchism is a mess. Just take.
Well, it's anarchy. I mean, anarchy is anarchy.
No,
That's what's.
No. Anarchy is actually order. There's an old saying. So anarchy is order. You see.
I don't see that. I don't see that at all.
Good at working together. Yeah. No. So here's where we've got to. The reason why anarchism is a mess now is because the system, right? The 20th century was just too much. It broke the back of anarchism, and how they did it was basically atomizing us. So the guys like Eddie Bernays.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, you wouldn't have.
I mean, I don't know a lot. I don't know the history of anarchy.
More
So.
against anarchism than probably anybody in the 20th century, and the reason is he developed the cult of the individual that is still prevalent. So we're still living in basically. Anarchism is all about comradeship and collective action. And the triumph of the 20th century against anarchism was the fact that they atomized us and they gave us an individual identity. So they won so badly that if you go in anarchism now, if you go in the anarchism sub on Reddit, it's all identity politics.
It is. It's pathetic. So you're saying that's not anarchy? It sounds to me like what you mean anarchy is like. What's a good example of anarchy? Maybe a Native American tribe.
Yeah, everybody is a hunter-gatherer. You could. I'm on dangerous territory here, but anybody who's a hunter-gatherer you can call an anarchist. So, okay, I'll tell you. Let me show you what an anarchist is. There's take the Zomia people. Ever heard of the Zomia people?
No.
No. Well, this is a common story with anarchism. Because anarchism is so dangerous to the system. It's just nitroglycerine, and so they go overtime to purge the system of anarchism. It's just basically, and so the Zomia people are probably about 10 million people in the Upper Highlands and in Laos and Vietnam and Southeast Asia. They used to think that they were kind of the savage dudes who kind of primitive dudes that never caught up with civilization. And then in the valleys, you have all the guys who civilized and kind of, nice, genteel guys who use writing and stuff like that. And then you go up in the hill people, up in what they call Zomia people now, anthropologists. They're basically, these guys are suddenly, they're not advanced. They don't have writing. They're just kind of dumb shits. And so and then gradually they started to piece together. The story didn't quite make sense. Again, James Scott sorted out a lot of this stuff. And they realized, hang on a minute, these guys used to have writing. They actually went up into the hills. They used to be in the valleys. They used to have writing. They went up into the hills. And then they used to cultivate on do square field cultivation, alien cortex. And then the next thing they know, they've been tubers and Swidden agriculture, which is just slash and burn stuff in the Amazon. And then, so then the guys are like, whoa, what's wrong with this picture? Why did they give up civilization and all its benefits? Like there are any bullshit. And because they're smarter than you. They knew this game. And they went up there avoiding slavery and stuff like this. This is again, our alien cortex is always about inversion, substitution. And that's we've substituted this story for civilization. Okay,
So how do we, you're painting a picture here of we're in this civilization thing, and both the matriarchy and the patriarch sort of depend on a system to make that work. We want to break out of that whole paradigm. We want to break out of it. And what you would say, you say, we need to break out of this into anarchy. What I hear when you say break out in anarchy is like, are you kidding me? But what you're really saying is break out of it into anarchy, which is collectivism,
yes.
cooperation.
So, yeah,
universal cooperation.
You see, they've convinced you that anarchy is chaos.
Right? Or that anarchy
Let's
is
take a T-shirt. Let's just take it.
Yeah. Who wants chaos?
So I'll tell you who wants chaos. Is the guys who are protecting you from it. So this is all about V for Vendetta, and it's like, you know, the government, the state wants they're saying they're running a protection racket. It's the mafia, right? They're basically saying, you know, you need us. Why? Because it's a violent world out there and dangerous, and there are threats everywhere. That's why you need us. And they're hoping you won't make it saying, like, hang on a minute, the biggest threat to me around here is you. And they're like, oh, no, backpedal, don't say that. See, that's the thing they're trying to hide from.
Yeah.
So they try and tell you that anarchy is chaos. And so there's a very illuminating thing in one of the temporary successes that anarchists had in Barcelona in 1936.
In Spain.
In Spain, yeah. So the anarchists took over everything, not violently. They, you know, I mean, if you were not an anarchist, they didn't give a rat's ass. If you were a fascist and you said, I'm not joining this, it's like, I'm a fascist, they would say, okay. They didn't, even the priests, there were cases where they actually burnt down churches and killed priests. But basically, anarchists against the system, and the system is church and state.
Not the people, the system.
Yeah. But they let the priests go, and a lot of we paid a heavy price. A lot of those priests actually double-crossed us, and so there are many cases of that. But there were some anarchists did put them up against the wall and shoot them. But anyway, that's not what's supposed to happen. And anyway, so the anarchists take over the factories. Now, here's the point that I'm trying to get to, is that when they were overrun, backstabbed by the communists, Stalin, imagine what Stalin and Hitler and Franco can all agree. This is both sides of the political spectrum, the absolute extremes of the extreme.
they're at each other's throats.
On
one thing.
Get rid of these fucking anarchists.
Kill the anarchists.
Yeah. They all agree on that unanimously. So Stalin sends guns to the communists, and then eventually the communists, basically, when they secure, basically, bang, the anarchists get it. That's always what happens. So, but anyway, when the anarchists got it, the whole thing had run without money, it was proof that anarchism worked, which is what the argument was always before, that you can't work without us, there will be no order. And so they ran the factories and the farms and all of this stuff. Here's the thing. They ran them so well that the production doubled.
What?
Yeah.
Under anarchy, those same factories and those same farms doubled production.
Yeah. Now, here's the interesting thing. When Franco's forces took over those factories, they demolished them. These are, you know, why didn't Franco just take them over and just carry on? I mean, they were in great condition and stuff, and the reason was they were in too great a condition.
And it would have reminded them that anarchy works.
Yeah, the guys came in. The Franco's fascists. They came into those shop floors and they were pristine. The machines were in tip-top order. The whole thing was running at twice the production that any factory in Spain had ever run at.
Or in Germany, probably.
They needed to suppress that. Yeah, they were desperate to suppress that. So basically, you won't even find a picture of those factories. It's just you have to talk to the survivors of that time. And Chomsky talks about this, the letters the woman wrote and stuff like that. But
So how does anarchy work in a collapse scenario?
Well, because basically the state will hang on to the bitter end. You'll be, if you look at the collapse of Germany, the state hangs on. It actually exceeds collapse. Basically,
it's the last one to go.
Hitler dies and hands over to Dönitz. Dönitz carries on like he's chancellor, even when it's like there's nothing. There's smoke, ash, and rubble. There's nothing.
Well,
and he's still carrying on giving edicts. So in Germany's case, the state actually superseded the last gasp of the German people. But so here's the thing, though. But if you're lucky, if you work hard to bring the system down, you might get a pocket of anarchism, right? So if the people are ready for it and they know what to do. See, in Barcelona, they had a long time of preparation, 80 years. They told stories, they cultivated, they educated people for it. So everybody knew as soon as didn't happen in a day, everybody knew exactly what they were doing. They'd been coached by it for anarchists for decades before that. So it's possible that if you know what to do and you've got all this system about, particularly the women, they're not trying to protect the system and stuff. You see, they're not trying to say like, oh, I want FEMA to survive because without FEMA, it's like FEMA's your worst enemy in collapse. Right. Don't have a look at Wuhan. Wuhan right now, they are quarantined a city. Okay, quarantining a city is bad mojo, right? You won't see any videos of this, but let me tell you, okay, what happens in the quarantine, right? I've seen these disaster plans. I've got a strange history and stuff with the Fed.
And XR can verify everything you're going to say about these emergency plans.
Yeah,
local XRs, regardless of the country, regardless of the state or county or province or whatever, local XRs can actually look up their local emergency plan that the government has.
No ways. These things are fucking secret. And the reason they're secret is there'll be fucking rebellion tomorrow if people know what's in these plans.
What about at the local level? I thought you could go to your local city and say, what's your emergency plan for the city?
Secret. No, if in your city hall, the government will have some part of a FEMA plan,
right,
or something like that. But they're sealed plans that they don't know about. City hall doesn't know. They're only allowed to open them when the shit hits the fan. The actual plans are all very, very secret. So,
you recommended this though before last year. I only brought this up because you recommended that people go and look these plans up at the local level.
There's an opportunity for XR there because they're like the 20-year rule and all these things. The statute of limitations and stuff has run out on the secrecy of some of these things. So in Britain. They're in the public domain of the ones from the Cold War. I'll tell you, I'll be very surprised if the latest ones are not the same as the Cold War ones. And if you look at what happens in the Cold War ones, they're things like, I think I've mentioned this. I think I mentioned this on Chris's channel. Is that they're things like a lord. Basically take any lord that you love to hate or like any like Rees-Mogg character, right? They will be dispatched to counties and they will have supreme right. They will have basically supreme authority in those counties. Now, I'm talking the power of life and death, anything they want, prima nocta, you name it. It's feudalism, man. And that's what you're going to go down on. Basically, when the shit hits the fan and the center in London can no longer communicate, they will dispatch soldiers and a lord will come and you will have a feudal lord. And that's their plan, right? You ain't going to be doing anarchy then. You're going to see some arsehole that is a psychopath and now he's just been given supreme power. So lock up your daughters because we're talking everything they had in feudal times, and I'm talking prima nocta and everything you just don't want. So XR has an opportunity there because they can say under the guise of deep adaptation, they can do at a local level. They can say, like, here, the government's not responding. Now you work out your own plan. You basically petition the government to FOEs and stuff like that to say that they must give up the plan, which they will not do, because a lot of these things are how to quarantine disease. Now, they don't want you to know how quarantine happens because they want a perimeter to go up, and then they need the disease to die out in the city. So if you want to see how this happens, go and see it in Zermatt, right? Zermatt, Zermatt in Switzerland. They had this whole lot of English tourists in Zermatt, and during this height of the ski season, I can't remember what they got, scarlet fever or something like that. They just quarantined it off, basically shoot on sight. Basically, soldiers will shoot on sight. You won't break out of that perimeter. And they just wait for the disease to die out. They don't want you to know that because they don't want anybody panic out of the thing. Yeah, basically, they need to contain it. So they're basically sacrificing your life for the greater good, right? So I'll share this with you. But remember in 2001, I was in San Francisco, and because I've seen all these plans, right? Or some of them, because of the technology and the software and stuff, I've written some and devices and robotics for that they will use, low energy devices that will parasitic energy and stuff that they will sprinkle around. They'll sprinkle them from aircraft, right? Remember in Vietnam, they put all these electronic things that didn't really work. They dropped them in the jungle, and they would detect people's footfall and
or urine,
Viet Cong and stuff. Well, they got bags of urine and just hung them on the things, which but anyway, believe me, that was like 1969. So
right, it's come a long way since
then. It's come a fucking long way.
Not to mention drone technology, right?
Yeah, the drone. You see, they will get to a point where you will be given the option: is you will take this serum, and you just boggles the mind what's going to be in the serum, but you'll be an inoculation against Marburg fever or something like that, and then you will have an option. You can either go into camp, which will become a death camp in about 3 minutes, or you can take the injection. What'll be in that injection too is an RFID tag. They will tag you, chip you like a dog, and basically, it's whether you take that chip or not. I don't know. It's up to you, but I mean, they'll
number
have
of the beast
that'll do recognition, and they'll shoot you on sight if you don't have that chip.
You'll need the number of the beast, or you'll die. Right?
Yeah, it's kind of a number of the beast stuff. This is not all conspiracy theory, by the way. This is
no. This is pretty mainstream. So hey, I've loved our discussion. I wish we could go another hour, but I'm kind of running out of time here.
Okay.
Anything else you wanted to say to end this?
Well, we didn't do enough on Greta, I thought, but we scratched the surface and stuff. But anyway, it's let's see how it'll come out. Good enough.
So we need to do another one of these probably next week. In the meantime, though, people really should go to XRMed. Go to reddit.com and go to XRMed, and you're ranting and you're posting there. You're trolling, you're exercising, you're doing, you're a one-man army on XRMed right now.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no one else there, but it's kind of like in a dark room chasing a black cat around.
Yeah.
On my own.
And there's a lot going on in the world right now, and the best place to follow up with it is to go to XRMed.
Yeah,
that's where you're at. That's where you're writing right now the most. If they want to get a hold of you, or do they go to your Patreon?
So some of the people have pointed out that they say basically there are a lot of people waiting in the wings that would like to discuss the nitty-gritty stuff. And I think at least one guy is setting up something that's on the dark web, so that basically you'll have an onion ring, and then the idea is that basically people will talk more freely if they think it's secure. That part of the thing is the more the more incendiary stuff that I put up there, people won't touch it with a barge pole because they know, about the surveillance state. But the thinking is that people will talk more freely on the dark web. And there's also, if you're in XR, I would also say this to you, that truthteller.life website, I don't know if that ever is being exercised or came to use, but that thing is very valuable. I mean, I don't think the guys are very clued up and technical in XR, so they put it out in the open and stuff. It's like I think basically if we set up stuff on the dark web, then you should seriously consider moving that truthteller.life, onto the Tor network. It's not absolutely secure. I don't know if they've cracked Tor yet, but I can tell you that they have rainbow tables for all the up to 128 bits. So
yeah, I don't know any of that stuff. I've never been on the dark net. Don't know anything about it.
Yeah, so most of the traffic.
I mean, are you recruiting? Are you like telling people to go to the dark net? Because I'm not going near that stuff.
Most of the traffic on the web, by far the majority, is on the dark web. Most of
really.
Yeah.
So is the dark web is bigger than the normal web?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Don't know. Don't care.
Well, anyway, that truthteller.life, if there's not any, I mean, if you're making out like a bandit on there and it's all, but if there's no traffic there, and I presume there isn't, because the last time I looked at it, it looked like it wasn't secure. But
yeah.
you need to put that on the dark web, and maybe we can help you, Exomed. But anyway, I just want to put that out there. That's a valuable start. Yeah.
Well, this has been great. Are you feeling better now? At least a little better?
Yeah, I do actually.
All right.
I was just getting started.
I know. I would love to just be able to sit down and do this for hours and hours and hours, but there's other things
going on. Hopefully.
We will. Hopefully at some point.